Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. First, I want to wish everyone an up-and-coming, well, in this country, I know we celebrate Thanksgiving. I know across the pond you guys don't. It's an American holiday, but Thanksgiving usually officially opens the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all of those things. And I know, again, Thanksgiving is an American holiday, and it's not a holiday, and I know a lot of you guys from across the pond, but I just wanted to also wish everyone a wonderful holiday season. With that in mind, we're all familiar with this case. We covered this case in great depth when it first occurred a couple of months ago. And Sheriff Mickey Stines, as you can see in this picture, this still photo, shoots and kills his friend, Judge Kevin Mullins. And obviously we know the how, because it's been played all across the nation on video. It was recorded on the video inside Judge Mullins' office. And we all can't understand, or we don't even know the why. There's been implications. It's been implied as to the why, but it still has not come out as to the why. And until we really know that, we just have this photo in our mind, and we have the videotape in our mind of Sheriff Mickey Stines shooting Judge Mullins. Now, we can talk about the implications. We can talk about what he said after he was arrested, and I'm referring to Sheriff Stines. He made some type of statement that they're going to kidnap my daughter and my family. That doesn't really make too much sense. But could it be that he lost his mind? And say, for example, even if he found out the judge who was his friend was having an affair with his 17-year-old daughter, underage daughter, there are other ways to handle that than going into the judge's chambers with your 9mm pistol and shooting him to death on camera. Now you've not solved any problems. You've caused problems. You killed the judge, and now you're probably going to do the rest of your life in prison. So did you solve anything by shooting the judge? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So we're going to talk today. Today, Sheriff Mickey Stines was in court, and he pled not guilty. You always have that as an option in this country. You could plead not guilty. However, there is videotape. There is, in this picture, the still from it, he's caught on camera killing the judge. I mean, how much of a chance does he have in his not guilty plea? Well, not too much of a chance. The only thing the defense, and we'll get into this more, the defense will have a way to fight this, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So, folks, hold on to your seats. Hold on to your hats. Hold on to your next-door neighbor, your pet. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Before we start the show, first, a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, folks, the sheriff charged in Judge's killing pleads not guilty in the same Kentucky courthouse where the fatal shooting unfolded. And this is according to CNN. A former Kentucky sheriff accused of killing a county judge in his chambers 2 months ago has pleaded not guilty to one count of murder of a public official. Today's arraignment was the first time defendant Sean Mickey Stines, 43 years old, was at the Letcher County Courthouse since State District Judge Kevin Mullins was shot to death in his chambers there. Stines, shackled and wearing a baggy dark gray jail uniform, did not speak or show any emotion during the hearing. The plea was entered for him by his defense attorney, Kerry Bartley. Stines, who was the only county sheriff when the alleged crime unfolded, has since resigned. His replacement, Billy Jones, was in the courtroom Monday, but did not speak as part of the proceedings. The indictment handed up Thursday by a grand jury does not shed any new light on a possible motive for the shooting. Stines could face the death penalty if convicted. Stines' preliminary hearing last month was held more than 100 miles from Letcher County because the courthouse was temporarily closed following Mullins' killing. Because of the close community ties of both the suspect and the victim, the case is being handled by a special prosecutor and a retired judge appointed by the state. The defendant shall not be admitted to bond at this time, State Judge Julia H. Adams said. Authorities responded to the Letcher County Courthouse on the afternoon of December 19th to find Mullins, 54 years old, had suffered gunshot wounds. Kentucky State Police said at the time, Stines surrendered to authorities at the scene. At last month's hearing, prosecutors played surveillance footage from Mullins' chambers that appeared to show the judge crouching behind his desk as a man identified as Stines shoots him multiple times. As Stines prepares to leave the room, he appears to see Mullins moving under his desk and fires several more shots. Defense attorneys did not deny Stines shot Mullins, but suggested he was in the midst of an extreme emotional disturbance, arguing a first-degree manslaughter charge would be more appropriate than murder. So that is what the defense is going to try to put forth. They're going to try to put forth a defense of manslaughter because obviously, how do you argue something when it's on screen, when it's actually caught on camera? So it's not the how. It's totally not the how. What it is in this case is the why. And that's what we're all waiting for. We're waiting for the why. Why did Sheriff Mickey Stines do this? And we hear allegations, we hear rumors, but no confirmation that it had something to do with the Judge Mullins' relationship with his underage 17-year-old daughter. Now, as upsetting as that would be to anyone to find out that a grown man perhaps was having a relationship with your underage daughter, killing him is not the solution. So the defense of Mickey Stines, of course, is trying to they realize they can't beat this case outright. They're not going to get him off. He's not going to walk free out of that courtroom. But if they can stop him from being convicted of murder second degree and maybe get a manslaughter first degree, then they've done their job. And under the statute of manslaughter is the subdivision of extreme emotional disturbance. So that's what they're going to argue. They're going to argue that he was in the throes of an extreme emotional disturbance, and that's why he shot the judge.
Judge dead. Video evidence from the trial shows former Letcher County Sheriff Sean Mickey Stines point his gun directly at District Judge Kevin Mullins. Mullins is seen on the ground with his hands up and turned away from Stines before the shots were fired. Stines has been charged with murder in the September 19th shooting of Mullins. The next step in the trial is for a grand jury to consider whether to indict Stines.
That is just the most powerful piece of evidence I think I've ever seen in my entire law enforcement career. And for anyone that watches that to think that there's any way on earth that Sheriff Stines is going to beat this case let's watch it one more time. And not only does he shoot him, but he comes around again almost to make sure that he's dead. He leans under the desk and points the gun at him again and fires
tonight
again.
About what exactly went down in the Letcher County courthouse that left a Kentucky judge dead. Video evidence from the trial shows former Letcher County Sheriff Sean Mickey Stines point his gun directly at District Judge Kevin Mullins. Mullins is seen on the ground with his hands up and turned away from Stines before the shots were fired. Stines has been charged with murder in the September 19th shooting of Mullins. The next step in the trial is for a grand jury to consider whether to indict Stines.
Well, he obviously has been indicted, but very difficult to watch that. It's quite disturbing, to watch a man murdered in front of your eyes. That's what happened. We can't make light of it. He was murdered. He was shot numerous times by a law enforcement officer. And to watch that, and then to think that this law enforcement officer somehow was suffering from extreme emotional disturbance, and that's going to be the defense. That's going to be his defense, his extreme emotional disturbance. And we won't know the why yet, because the why has not been told to us, because they're holding the why back right now. They're holding it because that's going to be their whole defense toward the extreme emotional disturbance. Was that we're hearing rumors, but no one's confirming it, that the judge apparently was having an inappropriate, we'll put it that way, an inappropriate relationship with Sheriff Stines' 17-year-old daughter, unnamed. We still don't have her name. But those are the allegations. This was Sheriff Stines coming into court today. Obviously, you hear the noise. He's shackled. He's got leg irons on. His hands are cuffed in the front to a chain that leads down to the shackles. So is he a threat to them in the courtroom? Obviously, they have him quite subdued with the shackles and that whole package they got him cuffed with. They had to have a new judge, obviously, in a different courtroom. A retired judge is sitting on this case because obviously the judge who had it is dead. He was the one who was killed over this case. So Sheriff Stines is sitting in a gray jumpsuit with his attorneys at the desk and is about to take part in his own arraignment. And how he pleads will determine how this goes forward. Of course, he's going to plead not guilty. Perhaps members of the sheriff's family or Sheriff Stines' family in the courtroom. Sheriff Stines sitting in the front row with his attorneys.
All right.
The judge is about to come in.
Setting up the record in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Sean Stines. Mr. Stines is present with counsel.
Yes, Your Honor.
And counsel that is Jeremy Hartley and Terry Hartley, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, and also the Honorable Jim Cox as well, Your Honor.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Well,
Thank you.
now, Commonwealth is represented this morning by Mr. Montgomery,
Jackie Steele, Your Honor,
Jackie Steele. And your co-counsel in this case
is Miss Randy
is
Dowd.
assigned to the Attorney General's office.
That is correct.
And that's Ramsey Dowd, and she is in trial elsewhere.
She is, I believe, in Green County, Your Honor.
Correct.
Yes.
Right, we are here this morning.
Also, they have a special prosecutor because, again, this is a little town and everyone knows each other. So they did bring in hired prosecutors.
Arraignment purposes.
Folks, I apologize about the sound. The judge doesn't have a microphone right in front of her, so she's relying on a microphone. They should have mic'd her much better, but that's the sound coming from her. I can't improve it. I have the sound up as loud as I possibly can.
All right, counsel, have you had the opportunity to review the indictment?
We have, Your Honor, we've taken a look at the indictment. We got an electronic copy, I believe, on Friday.
Yes. Do you desire to waive any of the,
We'll waive a formal reading and enter a not guilty plea at this time, Judge.
and you're satisfied that Mr. Stines is aware of his rights?
Yes,
And
Your
the
Honor.
nature and substance of this murder?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Yes. Judge, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt the court. We filed a notice to preserve all evidence, and I have no doubt that Mr. Steele will do that. We filed that down in district court. I just want to renew that, and I will file a written notice as well, Your Honor. And I would just ask the court to go ahead and enter a discovery order.
No objection to the preservation, Your Honor.
All right.
You know, guys, as someone just said in the chat, as to Summer Lane, I'll put what your comment in the chat. What if that was your daughter, that pig of a man? Summer Lane, you know something, no doubt. But murdering the man didn't solve anything, did it? Instead, what it did do is it put Sheriff Stines, it put him in jail right now, awaiting trial for a murder, which he potentially could receive the death penalty for. So how was that a solution? As egregious as the conduct potentially, and we don't know yet, it hasn't been verified. We don't know if, in fact, the judge who you see in this thumbnail, Judge Kevin Mullins, if he, in fact, was having an affair or an improper relationship with Sheriff Stines' daughter. That has never been proven. So, yeah, I understand. But again, him killing the judge didn't help his cause.
And in terms of the discovery order, I understand that it is your intention to deliver discovery to defense counsel within 7 to 10 days.
That is correct, Your Honor. Ms. Dowd actually has that. We didn't know when the arraignment was going to be, and didn't have an opportunity for me to get it from her in time.
Fantastic. That works for us, Judge.
All right. No entry of a plea of not guilty. You will note, counsel, my original intention in this case was to review bond for purposes of issuing the warrant of arrest.
Yes, Your Honor.
And in this case, I went ahead and set a no bond.
Yes, Your Honor.
Consistent with the district court's after significant consideration, given the implications of Marcy's law, community safety concerns, security concerns, the fact that the defendant is in fact charged with a capital offense, together with provisions of Rule 402, paragraph 1, the defendant shall not be admitted to bond at this time.
Yes, Your Honor.
That will be a matter of trial judge in this case. Anything else of a preliminary nature?
Judge, and I believe that my understanding was that the court simply doesn't want to take up bond at this time, but we can still file an adversarial bond.
You have every right to file for an adversarial bond hearing. We can after that meeting more from the trial judge.
Sure.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
No, they're pretty comfortable.
I will ask that everyone be seated and remain seated until the defendant is escorted out of the court.
Sir, may we be excused with our call?
It's my understanding let's go directly.
Sure.
So the answer is no.
Yes, Your Honor.
You know, somewhat, well, not somewhat, very much so. This whole case is so upsetting, and it's upsetting to us because we don't know all of the inside facts and does it make any difference? And I don't say that lightly. Again, if the judge was having an inappropriate relationship with Sheriff Stines' daughter, there was I guess, a legal way to deal with this, not to go into the judge's chambers, pull out a 9mm gun and shoot him, whatever it was, 8 or 9 times and kill him. That destroyed so many more lives than if he would have confronted this problem the correct way. And again, we're talking about as if we know that that's in fact what had occurred. And we don't know that that's in fact what occurred. We're getting this from, again, hearsay. And when this first occurred, the police that were on the scene, the state police, they heard, well, Sheriff Stines surrendered in the same courtroom where he killed the judge. He surrendered. And he made statements that the statement was he was going to kidnap my wife and my daughter. So someone made a statement in the chat that perhaps Sheriff Stines, and this is rumor, and again, there's no confirmation of this, perhaps Sheriff Stines had an abusive relationship with his wife and his daughter, and they may have asked the judge to intercede. But we don't know that. Again, that has not come out. But unfortunately, we won't find out all these things or any of these things until this case goes to trial. Let me play this here. It was the opening statement.
Public official. The judge he's accused of killing was his longtime friend, Judge Kevin Mullins. And there is surveillance video of the incident. You'll recall this was played in court at the preliminary hearing. You can see the two of them talking, and then you see the sheriff raise up his firearm and shoot. Now, we still don't know the motive. Law enforcement's being really tight-lipped about this, but we know that Stines called his daughter, his minor daughter, from his phone and from the judge's phone right before the shooting. Take a listen.
I wasn't present, but when he was taken into custody, I was told by one of the other officers that were there that he made the comment, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
Now, Stines' attorneys don't deny that Stines shot Mullins, but they say that he was in the middle of an extreme emotional disturbance. So they are fighting the charge of murder. They're saying this is more of a manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter situation. Now, there's this connection with Stines' daughter that's very unclear, probably deliberately unclear. Let's talk about what could have made the sheriff so upset at his friend, the judge, so upset that he shot and killed him. Let's bring back in our guests, attorneys Tommy Pope and Kevin Brackett. Tommy, I want to go to you, please. General thoughts on what's being put out in the public realm and what's very clearly being kept quiet about this.
Julie, initially, when we were talking about it in the past, it sounded almost like something of a sexual nature, perhaps. When we first were covering it, we talked about his phone and the judge's phone and why the daughter's number would be in there and so on and so forth. But what you just heard from the testimony was that he said some variation of they're trying to kidnap my wife and daughter, which to me lends itself perhaps to some type of delusion or mental health issue that we're not aware of, that, may be some form of mitigation, because either it's heat of passion or there's some serious mental health issues going on.
That's a really good point, Tommy. Either or here, perhaps. I have a clip I want to play for you, Kevin. This is one of the Kentucky State Police detectives. His name is Clayton Stamper. He was on the stand as the one witness called during the preliminary hearing. Let's take a listen to some of what he testified to pertaining to the phone calls that the sheriff made while he was in the judge's chambers.
Sheriff Stines uses his telephone to make some phone calls. He then borrows Judge Mullins' cell phone and appears to make a call on that. And that led to what you just saw.
Kevin, I want to get your thoughts, please, here on the part of the story that's missing. There's something going on with the sheriff's daughter that isn't being spoken about. What do you think, please?
It's very clear, what happened in this case, but the why is the question. And as regards the daughter and the fact that he called the daughter from his own phone as well as the judge's phone, and that he had the phone, the judge had the daughter's phone number in his phone. Now, of course, I don't know the history and the length of their relationship. He could be the godfather to the child. I don't know. So it's definitely, there's a lot of unknowns here, but it certainly, it lends itself to speculation, which I don't like to get into, even because I don't know this man, and I would never want to speculate the deceased on what may have been going on in his life. But in addition to the comments Tommy made about the sheriff may have been under a delusion or some sort of mental health breakdown, there's also some possibility that there is a wrinkle to this relationship that we're unaware of, which could have excited the anger of the sheriff and caused him to do what he did. But we don't know what that is, and I really don't like to speculate because, again, Judge Mullins, his own reputation and personality, his own reputation is on the line, and he's the victim in this case.
Right. Thank you for that, Kevin. I know that this came out during the preliminary hearing that investigators, and you would hope they would cross-check everything. So not only have they gone through the sheriff's phone records, the judge's phone records, but they're also going through the daughter's phone records, as we found out. Tommy, I'd like to play this clip for you. Again, this is that same investigator from the preliminary hearing.
You intend to obtain records for her cell phone number?
Possibly, yes.
Do you believe that will be soon that you'll do that?
Could be, yes.
Had you already intended to do that, or did you just respond to my question?
Well, the call should be on the judge's records too.
Well, I understand.
And she's made statements about what occurred during those conversations.
Okay, so that gives us a little bit more that perhaps there was communication going on between the judge and the daughter. Was it inappropriate? Maybe, maybe not. Tommy, what did you think when you heard that clip there?
I think our first mind is to go exactly where you went, and it must be nefarious. But, the officer was so flat in his delivery, it could have been she told us that she was working on an intern project and needed more information about judges. I was thinking what Kevin was saying, our judge is here. Kevin probably has my daughter's phone number and I have hers, to help them with school or whatever the case may be. So, again, back to Kevin not wanting to speculate, Julie, it could be, an innocent answer. It is clear to me that law enforcement knows and that we're going to have to hear it in court.
Right, Tommy.
One of the things you guys are asking questions in the chat prior to this exchange, prior to Judge Stines, Sheriff Stines shooting Judge Mullins, they were at a luncheon, and apparently they were seen speaking to each other. They didn't know witnesses described it as, they couldn't say it was heated, but it was serious. And they overheard the judge say, do we need to speak in private? Do we need to go into my chambers? And Sheriff Stines said yes. So they had, on that day of the shooting, they had been to a luncheon. So at some point, or prior to that point, of course, Sheriff Stines heard something from, or was living through something that had to do with his wife and his daughter. Now, all we're hearing, and you heard them say on this channel, that we may have to wait till this case goes to court to find out the actual truth about the relationship between Judge Kevin Mullins and Sheriff Stines' daughter, 17-year-old daughter. Or could it totally be that we'll get totally surprised that perhaps was Sheriff Stines having an abusive relationship with his wife and his daughter, and did they seek out the judge's counsel, the judge's help? We don't know. We don't know, because as they just said, that law enforcement knows, but they're not letting it out there. And we keep hearing about, when we hear about a defense, and we hear, of course, the defense, the best they could possibly do in a case like this is get a murder first-degree charge reduced to a manslaughter first-degree charge under the statute, under the subdivision of extreme emotional disturbance, which we used to know as temporary insanity. Does someone lose their mind to the extent that they kill somebody? But you could see in the video that we watched of Sheriff Stines shooting the judge, he seems very cold and very cool. In fact, he methodically goes around that desk and shoots him again and again and again. He doesn't shoot him once. So he obviously wanted to make sure that Judge Kevin Mullins was dead. Now, is that extreme emotional disturbance? Is it? Or is that thinking? He's thinking as he's shooting. He's thinking about what he's doing. So did he lose his mind? He seems awfully cool to me during that shooting. It doesn't seem like he lost his mind at all. It seems like he took out that gun and he decided what he was going to do with it. So when we talk about, was it extreme emotional disturbance? When you watch the video, which of course is going to be played 1 million times in a court of law, does that say to a juror that this was a man with extreme emotional disturbance? Or does that say to a juror, no, this man thought about what he was doing? Watch him.
Down in the Letcher County courthouse that left a Kentucky judge dead. Video evidence from the trial shows former Letcher County Sheriff Sean Mickey Stines point his gun directly at District Judge Kevin Mullins. Mullins is seen on the ground with his hands up and turned away from Stines before the shots were fired. Stines has been charged with murder in the September 19th shooting of Mullins. The next step in the trial is for a grand jury to consider whether to indict Stines.
So when you look at that again, is that extreme emotional disturbance? He methodically went around the desk and shot the judge numerous times. Would someone who was under extreme emotional disturbance be able to think that methodically, to be able to calmly and in cold blood shoot a number of times? I'm sure the judge probably screamed out something like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" You know, he put his hands up, which is obviously, you know, someone points a gun or going to hit you with something, you in a defensive mode. So we have to, when we look at that, is that extreme emotion?
Video evidence from the trial shows former Letcher County Sheriff Sean Mickey Stines point his gun directly at District Judge Kevin Mullins. Mullins is seen on the ground with his hands up and turned away from Stines before the shots were fired. Stines has been charged with murder in the September 19th shooting of Mullins. The next step in the trial is for a grand jury to consider whether to indict Stines.
You know, the reporter kept saying in the trial has not yet started. These are just the preliminary hearings, the arraignment. He was indicted by a grand jury, but there has not been a trial yet. But I guess she just misspoke. But that, I think, I want to hear people from the chat. Don't you think he methodically, does that lend itself to extreme emotional disturbance when someone goes around a desk and methodically shoots somebody? Jay Mofo from the chat, is the death penalty on the table? It is. It is. But will they go for it? I don't know. That potentially is doubtful because the defense is looking to get a manslaughter 1. Beverly Lawyer, judges carry, guess didn't think anything. Beverly Lawyer, apparently this judge always carries or has guns in his chambers. And that was one of the things that was asked by the investigators. Did you find other guns in the judge's chambers? And apparently not. They did not. Mel Stiller, hello, Sergeant Bill and everyone in chat. I apologize for being late. Mel, I'm glad you're here. Welcome aboard. Claudia Lanza Stuffer, thank you so much for the £5 super sticker. If the sheriff had possible a mental problem, why were no incidents before this murder happened? Someone would notice around him. You know, Claudia, that all will come out in the trial. But for right now, we don't know that. It's too in-depth to ask that. Well, not to ask, but we don't know it yet. Jane C. from the chat, he was upset for a length of time, simmering with anger at lunch leading up to the shooting. Jane C., I think you hit it on the head. I think you're absolutely right. Heather Whatever from the chat, I think the shock of that time has put some in different views and actions. Yeah. I think, look, I think everyone understands anything with your daughter or family member can cause someone to be enraged and to get crazy over who did it. But when we look at this, and according to Jane C., premeditated, in my opinion, Jane C., that is the definition of premeditated murder. He went into the judge's chambers clearly to kill him, to take the judge's life. From the chat, Cookie Crunch, yes, I think it was deliberate and calculated. 100%, there's no doubt about that. All we have to do in a case like this is like the poster child for murder. Look at that picture right up on the screen. When I say the poster child for murder, he's calmly standing there as the judge is smoking a cigarette, has a cup of coffee there. The judge doesn't sense anything violent about to happen, but guess what? It was about to happen. And we see Sheriff Stines methodically go around the desk and shoot the judge numerous times. Very disturbing, no doubt.
Another thing, too, and again, we don't know, and I appreciate how careful you both are being with not speculating and just analyzing the facts as we know them. Kevin, let's say just for the sake of our analysis, because I'm sure you run into this, in your office. Let's say there was something inappropriate going on with that minor child, let's say, and then you have this prosecution going on of the child's parent. How do you protect the child and what occurred? Do you know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to violate her privacy. If that is the situation, again, we don't know. But if you need to carry out the prosecution and if it's part of the story, what things do you do as a solicitor to try to protect any minor victims who may come up in any case? Not saying it's going on in this one. We don't know.
Well, you do have to have these things take place in an open courtroom, because in the U.S. all the courts are open. What you can do to protect the child in some circumstances is allow them to testify remotely via closed circuit television or something of that nature, to keep them from having to do this in front of a bunch of strangers. But if it's information and it's relevant, it needs to come out.
Mm-hmm. And appreciate that remote testimony, something to conceal the minor's identity. And we do see it often with the cases we have, as you both know. We see that sometimes it's voice only, sometimes, as you said, different courtroom setup, Kevin. So we'll just have to wait and see if that is in fact the case. Again, we don't know, but really appreciate the great analysis from you both. Can't wait to have you both back here on opening statement.
So, guys, again, no doubt premeditated murder. We don't know, of course, all the facts to this case. We don't know what, if anything, was going on between the judge and Sheriff Stines' daughter. Jamsey from the chat, his wife wanted a divorce. That's why she was talking to the judge. Jamsey, do you know that? Do you know that as a fact? I can't put that out there as a fact unless we get that from a source that we know that it's confirmed. I can't just say, oh, yes, we know. Something was going on. Something was going on behind the scenes. T. Cancella, what will the defense theory be? Wonder and say, well, Cancella, the defense has already tipped their hand. They showed their cards. What they're looking to do is go for a manslaughter first degree under the theory of extreme emotional disturbance, which is almost like we used to call that temporary insanity, that you just lost it temporarily. And normally, you're a good guy. You wouldn't normally do that. The problem with that defense here is that when you watch that video of Sheriff Stines, there he is standing here with the gun, not to do it without the writing on the screen, so cold, so calculated, and shoot the sheriff. I don't know the exact amount of shots. It seemed like it was about 8 or 9 shots. And then before he leaves, he goes around the desk and leans down and shoots him again. Is that someone that's suffering an extreme emotional disturbance, a temporary insanity? Or is that someone that is cold and calculated and thinking about what they're doing? Well, that's what the jury's going to be asked to do. And then we all ask also, well, is his wife and his daughter going to testify on his behalf or against him? We haven't totally thought of that yet, have we? Will his wife and his daughter testify against Sheriff Stines? It's tough. Look, there's no doubt who did this. There's no doubt how he did it. There's no doubt when he did it. We don't know the why. And juries always want to know the why, even though that is not an element of the charges. But they want to know why. Why did Sheriff Stines shoot Judge Kevin Mullins, who was a good friend of his? Will that lend itself to extreme emotional disturbance? Will that lend itself to temporary insanity? That's what I'm asking you guys. Does it? Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, I see a lot of new names here. Just hit that red button on the screen, subscribe. Give us a thumbs up, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. And you can join our YouTube channel, become a member, a Police Off the Cuff family member. Roxy had to be extreme emotional disturbance to do that in the judge's chambers. But Roxy, he did that, but he was good friends with the judge. He worked in that courthouse. It was a very familiar area to him. He had to think about this. So is my question to you and my question to a jury is, when someone plans something and is premeditated like it was done in this case, can there be extreme emotional disturbance? Remember, we used to call extreme emotional disturbance temporary insanity. Was this temporarily insane? Was it? Colleen Ballard Silberman, daughter fell for a boy her age and judge couldn't take it, stalked her. She had to tell daddy. Colleen, is that a theory or do you have some insider information? Because I mean, lots of theories out there. Either moment from the chat, testimony of wife will be crucial. Beverly lawyer, you want a divorce, you get an attorney. How many times have we seen police off the cuff, family and true crime community? Over this past year, people think that murder was a solution to their problems. How many times have we seen that? We've seen it a lot of times, haven't we? Maui Swift seems overkill to me. No doubt, Maui, like he was punishing him, right? Like there was no doubt he wanted to make sure he was dead, right? Is that extreme emotional disturbance? I don't know. Is that temporary insanity? Beverly lawyer, wife and daughter was standing by Stines. We'll see if they stand by him. That remains to be seen. Either moment, video tells everything, slam dunk case. Either moment, as far as the how, yeah. The how, yeah, we know how. Again, the only thing we don't know is the why. And again, that's not an element of the charge of murder. So yeah, it seems like it could be. Extreme blonde, if this was a DV situation that the wife daughter was trying to get out of, why would they be supporting the sheriff when he shot the person who they reached out for help? Doesn't make sense. Extreme blonde, great point. Excellent point. Yeah, absolutely. Carly, I'm wondering if he will testify. Carly, I doubt it. Almost, in almost any case, 99% of the cases, attorneys counsel their clients not to testify, because testifying opens you up to questions that you may not want to answer, questions they can't ask, because unless you get up on the stand, once you get up on the stand, you're fair game to the prosecutors asking questions. JY from the chat, the seed of the watch is roaming free in the modern world. Carly, I finally got my 1-year badge. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being around for 1 year. This folks been around here we've been around for 5 years. Lieutenant Peter Pranzo was one of our first guests when we used to do the show in New York City at the Sergeant's Benevolent Association's office. We used to do a show there, and Lieutenant Pete was one of our first guests. He's a fantastic guest. He wrote the book Harlem Raiders, if you haven't seen that book. Only Me Baby 2, Crazy Man, what made him crazy enough to shoot his friend in his office where they have cameras? Yeah, Only Me Baby, he wasn't concerned with getting away. The deed overtook the reason. He didn't have reason, because was he temporarily insane? Or was he so overcome with rage that he was going to take this man out, which is what he did? Heather, whatever. I really wonder if it was more about him, in my opinion, him losing his marriage and maybe career issues related to stuff that happened on his watch. Well, we could get deeper, a deeper dive into this case, which we have done earlier on. And he was party to a lawsuit where one of his underlings was arrested for SA, and a woman who was arrested. So that could have been maybe part of this case. And Judge Stines was named as a plaintiff in that case. So could that have anything to do with it? Again, we don't know for a fact. if that does, but we'll always wonder, does it? Did that have anything to do with it? And again, we get back to the daughter, and that's what's been rumored as to be the catalyst behind this. This is from a local TV station.
For the arraignment hearing in the sheriff shoots judge murder case for Sean Stines.
There's a case that shocked not just Kentucky, but people around the country. Former sheriff goes in and kills his buddy, who is a judge, in his chambers. This was just a few months ago. This is the first time Stines will be back at that same courthouse. He made his initial appearance at a different courthouse, but he's back in the courthouse where this murder took place.
Surveillance video of the shooting was played during his court appearance in October. It does show Stines talking with Judge Kevin Mullins in his office, and then you can see that the shooting begins. A grand jury has formally indicted Stines on the charge of murder of a public official, but the indictment does not shed any new light on a possible motive for the shooting.
Let's go into the courtroom now in Kentucky. Sean Stines is there to be arraigned.
Present with counsel.
Yes,
And counsel, that is Jeremy Hartley and Terry Hartley. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, and also the Honorable Jim Cox as well, Your Honor.
How are you?
All right, how are you? Thank you.
Folks, just so you know, the judge, they had to, because this is such a small town USA and everyone knows each other, they actually had to appoint a retired judge to be the judge of record on this case and a special prosecutor, because everyone knows each other. So they had to bring someone in from the outside to prosecute. And they refer to him as Sean Stines. They've been calling him Mickey Stines since the beginning of this case. So I don't want anyone to be confused. He's Sean Mickey Stines, but he's been referred to as Mickey Stines during this whole case. Play a little bit more of this.
Yeah. Commonwealth is represented this morning by Mr. Montgomery.
Jackie Steele, Your Honor.
Jackie Steele. And your co-counsel in this case
Is Ms. Ramsey
is
Dowling?
assigned to the Attorney General's office.
That's correct.
And that's Ramsey Dowling, and she is in trial elsewhere.
She is, I live in Green County, Your Honor. Yes.
Right, we're here this morning.
So the prosecutor, special prosecutor from the Kentucky State Attorney General's office, they couldn't have a local prosecutor, obviously.
For arraignment purposes. All right, counsel, have you had the opportunity to review the indictment?
We have, Your Honor, we've taken a look at the indictment. We got an electronic copy, I believe, on Friday.
Yes. Do you desire to waive any of it?
We'll waive a formal reading and enter a not guilty plea at this time, Judge.
And you're satisfied that Mr. Stines is aware of his rights?
Yes,
The
Your Honor.
nature and substance of this murder charge?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Yes. Judge, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt the court. We've filed a notice to preserve all evidence, and I have no doubt that Mr. Steele will do that. We filed that down in district court. I just want to renew that, and I will file a written notice as well, Your Honor. And I would just ask the court to go ahead and enter a discovery order.
No objection to the preservation, Your Honor.
All right.
You know, Carly from the chat just raised the specter. Will it be hard to find a jury? Yeah, I think it will be difficult to find an impartial jury. Everyone knows each other. Might they change the venue of this? Will that be something that the defense will argue? Or will they say, wait a minute, it doesn't matter. There's videotape of the murder. This is recorded. It's on tape. So what does it matter where the hell we have this trial? So maybe it'll just stay where it is because the whole world's seen this thing.
And in terms of the discovery order, I understand that it is your intention to deliver discovery to defense counsel within 7 to 10 days.
That is correct, Your Honor. Ms. Dowling actually has that. We didn't know when the arraignment was going to be, and didn't have an opportunity for me to get it from her.
Fantastic. That works for us, Judge.
All right. No entry of plea of not guilty. You will note, counsel, my original intention in this case was to review bond for purposes of issuing the warrant of arrest.
Yes, Your Honor.
And in this case, I went ahead and set a no bond.
Yes, sir.
Consistent with the district court's plan. After significant consideration, given the implications of Marcy's law, community safety concerns, security concerns, the fact that the defendant is in fact charged with a capital offense, together with provisions of Rule 402, paragraph 1, the defendant shall not be admitted to bond at this time.
Yes, Your Honor.
That will be a matter of trial judge in this case. Anything else that was preliminary nature?
You know, folks, I apologize about the sound, but in this case, in all channels, the judge who's speaking did not have a microphone directly, so the sound wasn't as great. The defense attorney for Sean Mickey Stines, the sheriff, pled not guilty for him.
Oh, absolutely, Judge, and I believe that my understanding was that the court simply doesn't want to take up bond at this time, but we can still file an adversarial bond.
You have every right to file for an adversarial bond hearing. We can act with that thing in more for the trial judge in this case. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
I will ask that everyone be seated and remain seated until the defendant is escorted out of the board.
So as you could see, that was his arraignment. Sheriff Mickey Stines, shackled, wearing a gray jumpsuit. I would think for the people of this community, the people that know him, the people that know Judge or knew Judge Kevin Mullins, very disturbing thing to watch. Will he get a fair trial? I think so. But look how incriminating that video is. I mean, shows a murder live on tape, right? How do you argue that? How do you argue you didn't do it? You can't. And the defense is not going to say that. The defense is just going to say not guilty by reason of what would amount to extreme emotional disturbance, or as we used to call it, temporary insanity. And that's the only hope he has for a manslaughter conviction and not a murder first degree. This is a capital murder case. Very good chance that he could get life without parole. Don't know, apparently, they have the death penalty on the books, whether they will go for it or they stopped executing perpetrators that had committed a murder first degree. That could be the reason they don't go for the death penalty. We'll continue to watch this. And again, we still don't know the why. But there's a hell of a lot there as far as how and when and who and what. But everyone wants to know the why. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Thank you so much for tuning in this early evening. I want to wish everyone a fantastic holiday season. I'll put up my little Police Off the Cuff wreath right there. And in the USA, we celebrate Thanksgiving. I know you guys across the pond don't do that, but I wish you guys a wonderful holiday season also. So, folks, on behalf of myself and the Police Off the Cuff family, thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Have a great night, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.